S.Gridman has been an absolute blast so far. It's been a real treat to tune in each week and see Hibiki take on creatures of incredible size. In many ways, the series has a leg up on other Trigger shows, with character designs that are immediately eye-catching and likable without being too ridiculous. On that note, the twist that the series seems to be going for has been properly foreshadowed and well-earned so far, and there's seemingly no way that they can go to space this time. Although, to paraphrase Jurassic Park, Trigger finds a way. The fights have been a ton of fun, even if they are a bit on the short side and a little light on strategy, and I genuinely love the show's cast. The high school kids come across as real teenagers, while each of the Neon Genesis junior high students is quirky, interesting, and memorable. The show's underlying sense of mystery just works, and if I can one day have my head slowly crushed between Rika's legs, I can die a happy man. For all the big things that Gridman gets right though, it's the attention it pays to the small details that really makes me love it. At its heart, this show is a love letter to Tokusatsu, a catch-all term for live-action Japanese films and TV series that make heavy use of special effects. These include kaiju movies like Godzilla and superhero shows like Ultraman, Kamen Rider, and Super Sentai. S.Gridman makes many nods to Tokusatsu classics, most of which kind of fly over my head if I'm being perfectly honest, because as much as I've enjoyed the Toku shows and films that I have seen, I've never had time to properly dig into the wealth of content the subgenre has to offer. Kamen Rider Gaim and a few other shows are high on my list, but it's a long list, and I'm not about to front and pretend that I know more about this stuff than I actually do. But while I can't appreciate all of those deep cuts that Tokusatsu fans keep freaking out about on Twitter, Mock Dent is a much better Twitter to follow if you're interested in that stuff, I can appreciate the way that the series captures the spirit of Tokusatsu in how it's filmed and animated. With animation, if you can imagine it and you have enough time or money, you can show your audience literally anything. Yet, despite having almost limitless freedom to do whatever the hell they want, Trigger has made a concerted and downright impressive effort to ensure that every battle in Gridman feels like it could have been created with rubber suits, practical effects, and TV budget CGI. Emphasis on feels because some of this stuff, particularly the ground level shots showing the destruction caused by Gridman and the Kaiju, would be very difficult to actually film. But the show convincingly gives off the same sensation as watching actors stomping around a model city on a soundstage, and it rarely breaks that illusion. When Hibiki transforms into Gridman, for example, they depict him growing in size using an effect that could easily be recreated by having an actor stand on a green screen and lowering a camera toward their face. And whenever we see him pop out of a portal afterwards, no matter what angle we see it from, the portal is represented as a green light that cuts off at the top edge of the screen, which means that all of those shots could be done simply by lowering Gridman into the frame using wires. The debris that's kicked up when he lands and as he fights is almost all amorphous black clutter, which would be easy to composite into the shot if it were CGI, and the rest of it is cars, which could just be toy cars. And when he performs his more acrobatic fighting moves, he tends to hang in the air a bit, like he would if he were, say, suspended by wires. When Gridman equips his special weapons, each sold separately for a nominal fee, effort is made to show how they transition from their vehicle forms and physically fit together with him. And there are always cuts in the transformation sequence where the regular Gridman suit could have been swapped out for a different costume. And all of the equipment, even the ridiculously oversized fists of Max Gridman, could be realized through practical means like puppetry. Heck, the title card of the OP is created the same way that it would be with live-action footage, freezing frame on the action in a slightly awkward position instead of just having everything fall perfectly into place. But I'll save the rest of my thoughts on that for later. I say wishfully as I look at the massive list of video ideas I have to get done before the end of the year. It's impressive just how much thought and effort has gone into making Gridman feel like an authentic Tokusatsu hero. The way he fights is visually stunning, but never breaks from what was possible for the heroes who inspired him. Most of the monsters that Gridman has fought so far are designed like rubber suits, with space made inside of every one to accommodate the human actor within. What's more, they move like there are humans inside of them, with all of their articulation being restricted to places where real human joints would be. The dragon from episode 1, for example, has a long neck extending from the chest of the actor inside it, whose real head would be around the big spike on its back. And the dragon's head only moves in response to the motion of its shoulders and body, exactly as it would if it were a big floppy piece of foam rubber. The first time Gridman grabs it by the horns, you can see its neck folding in the middle at the thinnest and weakest part of the prop. And when it makes its counterattack, it swings its neck at him like a cudgel. Its mouth and tongue are loose so they flop around a bit, but they don't move on their own, and neither do its eyes, which blink out like little light bulbs when its head is taken off, while the body keeps moving around because the actor's still in there totally fine. The Mechagodzilla thing that attacks their teacher in episode 2 has a more obvious practical design, and not just because it looks a lot like the most famous Tokusatsu costume ever. Its glass face, again with fixed googly eyes, could easily be balanced on top of the actor's actual head, while its mouth, which does actually move, could be driven with a single oscillating motor. And the broken armor plating on its body doesn't just look cool, that style of broken metal plates over a softer body also happens to be a good way to achieve a mechanical look without compromising an actor's mobility or making a costume too complicated. Anti's design follows similar principles, with a flexible undersuit and rigid carapace in the form of a bulky vest, boots, and gauntlets that give him an appropriately monstrous look without restricting what he can do. Especially important since his suit would need to be used multiple times throughout the series. Those pieces could also be swapped out from the costume if, say, Anti needed to change the form of his body to copy Gridman's abilities, like he does in episode 5 with his missiles and episode 7 with his rocket legs. But I'm getting a bit ahead of myself. Circling back to episode 4, at first glance, the crawling kaiju with the big mouth and tentacles doesn't exactly look humanoid until the camera zooms out and you can clearly see exactly where a person would fit inside its conspicuously tall body. You can even see the point in its big tentacles where the arm inside cuts off and the rubber hose is just left to flop around. It's a pretty nifty design, honestly, one that reflects how creative the costume teams on real tokusatsu film sets need to be if they want to create a truly varied bestiary for their heroes to battle. Also, it's worth pointing out how, when the kaiju attacks the YouTube douchebag with its other tentacles, we don't actually see the attack animated. There's a shot of the tentacles wiggling toward the camera, then we cut to a shot of Logan Paul already wrapped up in them, because they're just rubber hoses and they can only move when people are moving them. The same thing happens when it attacks Anti. We only see them move independently for any length of time when they're menacing Rika in a way that looks an awful lot like their tips are just being suspended with fishing line. Which is also, incidentally, exactly how the fake UFO from episode 7 is controlled. That's probably the most obvious example of the show calling attention to these practical effects so far, because of how each piece is a free-floating object around the glowing orb at the center. I guess they decided to balance that out by making the kaiju controlling it the most obvious dude in a suit design yet. Now, there has been one kaiju so far that doesn't fit that mold, the mountain-sized turtle that so rudely interrupts the beach episode. And it's also massively bigger than both Gridman and Anti when they're standing next to it and on it. But it also doesn't really move on camera, like at all, except to open its mouth and slightly swish its tail with its body nowhere in sight. And in all of the scenes where it actually has to interact with Gridman, it only attacks him with the volcanoes on its back. So how would they pull that off in real life? Well, the shots that we do see of the turtle crawling on the mountain or lumbering through the forest could all be recreated by swapping between a few miniaturized models of the creature with a puppet for the shot of its tail and some creative camera work to hide the seams and the hands holding the models up. Even in the shot where Gridman kicks it in the head, we only see him in a static pose, which could just be a plastic figure on top of a rock monster puppet with a moving mouth. And in the shots where he has to fight Anti next to or on it, it doesn't move at all, which means it could easily be a fixed part of the set there rather than a moving prop. As impressive as this creature is, there is nothing that they do with it that couldn't be done practically. And I could keep going with these details. The kaiju we see looming over the city's skyline are almost always shown in a way that could be replicated with matte painting or some simple CGI. And the effect used when the monsters show up and the city is restored to normal is really just a fog machine. But I think I've geeked out enough here. I can't presume to speak for your average Tokusatsu fan because, like I said, I can't really claim to be one, but I can say for certain that Gridman manages to capture almost perfectly the exact thing that I enjoy most about the Tokusatsu films and shows that I've seen. I'm the kind of film geek who just dies over the practical effects in productions like Aliens and The Thing. I don't know, there's something really fun about trying to figure out how all the effects are done in older or lower budget films and shows. And it makes me really happy that Gridman has gone out of its way to preserve that magic in an animated adaptation. It's not a conventional approach to animating giant monster battles, but damn does it ever make the show stand out. And stand out in a way that doesn't make it feel like a third-rate Evangelion knockoff. Now, here's hoping that Trigger can resist going to space. If you're gonna be diving into your computer to fight reality-warping kaiju in the streets of Tokyo, you're gonna want protection, and not just from swords and lasers and stuff like that. While those might destroy your city, there are plenty of people out there on the World Wide Web who want to destroy your privacy. And today's sponsor, ExpressVPN, can help you protect yourself from them, all for less than $7 a month. ExpressVPN obscures your identity and location as you browse the web, allowing you to stay truly anonymous and evade ISPs, ad companies, hackers, and websites trying to track your usage. It also protects your data with best-in-class 256-bit AES encryption, preventing malicious entities from sniffing out your sensitive personal information like credit card numbers, passwords, and your preferred hentai search terms. And if you're fed up with limited libraries of online streaming platforms in your particular country, or just spitting out a hypothetical here, worried that some future article of international law marked with an ominously unlucky number might segment the entirety of Europe off from the rest of the web and prevent you from viewing your favorite international YouTubers, shows, and movies, ExpressVPN can help you get around region locks by giving you an IP address in one of 94 different countries. ExpressVPN is consistently faster than other major VPN providers and will respond just as quickly if you have problems with 24/7 customer support. They have apps for every device from Windows to Mac to iOS and Android to Linux and even routers, so you never have to browse the web without protection, and the tech-savvy among you can easily protect your entire home network. On top of that, they have browser extensions for Chrome, Firefox, and Safari, allowing you to protect your data even when you're browsing away from home. ExpressVPN provides privacy and security you can really trust, and they've even released their own suite of open-source leak testing tools, so you can check on that for yourself if you're not sure. But don't just take my word for it. Find out for yourself why they're a market leader in the VPN space by signing up at the link in the doobly-doo, expressvpn.com/basement. If you sign up for a 1-year subscription using that link, you can get 3 months of bonus service for free. And if you're not happy with it, that comes with an extra 30-day money-back guarantee. Visit expressvpn.com/basement to learn more and take back your internet privacy today. If you're a Tokusatsu fan, let me know in the comments below what films or series you'd really like to see me talk about in some capacity in the future, and if you're not, let me know which girl is best girl in Gridman. And while you're down there, don't forget to hit that like button and hit the subscribe button if you want to see more videos from me every Tuesday and Saturday. I'm Geoff Thew, professional shitbag, signing out from my mother's basement.